Hey everybody, it's Mike from Fishing the Mid-South, and today we're going to discuss these four reels. Actually, we'll discuss a fifth one that I don't have on the table, and these are all the Pflueger President series reels. We have the size 20, the size 25, the size 30. The size 35 is missing, and this is the size 40. So I want to go over specs with you. I've done a review on these reels. I've done a teardown on a couple of them. There'll be more coming. Show you how to maintain them, etc. But the question we want to answer today is, which size is right for you? So here we go. So we're going to go through the specs. Kind of a little dry, a little boring, I get it, but this will help you choose the right reel for your application. So let's take the size 40 and the size 30 away right now and just talk about the size 20 and the 25. Because despite the looks, there's a lot of differences between them, but then a lot of it's still the same. First off, the size 20, that's the smallest. 25 is the next smallest, okay? This has 7 bearings. The 25 has 10 bearings. So a 3 bearing difference there. You can also see that the size of the spool is, the diameter, at least of the lip, is, seems considerably larger. However, the spool capacity on these is very, very similar. So we'll start with the drag. So the drag, you have 6 pounds on the 20 and 8 pounds on the 25. The weight, you get 6.2 ounces versus 7.5 ounces. Now, that may be the differentiating factor that matters to you. It may not be. Again, 7 bearings versus 10 bearings. All of these reels are going to have a 5.2 to 1 gear ratio. So on mono capacity, 200 yards of 2 pound versus 220 yards of 2 pound. 4 pound gets you 100 yards versus 110 yards. And going to 6 pound test, you'll get 80 yards versus 90 yards. So again, very similar spool capacities on these. On braid, if you're looking at 4 pound, you're getting 180 yards versus 200 yards. Bump it up to 6 pound test, and you're looking at 125 yards versus 140. And if you then go up to 8 pound test, 100 yards versus 110. Again, not really surprising considering that we just talked about the mono capacity being very similar. Now, one thing that may dictate the right reel for you. So we want to find out the spool diameter of the lip. And on the 20, we're looking at 1.406 inches. And then on the 25, looking at 1.5445. So a little bit larger there. And where this comes into play is the rod you're going to be using this with. So if you're using the standard formula, it's about, you want the stripper guide, that's the guide closest to the reel. You want it to be about half the diameter of the spool lip. So that may determine again which reel works better for you in that situation. One thing that you do want to keep in mind is the larger the spool diameter, the less number of twists to get the same amount of line out. Because spinning reels have line twists. That's just how they work. Okay? So for almost every situation, I'm going to choose the size 25 over the size 20. The weight difference doesn't bother me. The line capacity is so similar, but the 10 ball bearings versus, or 10 bearings versus 7 bearings, that's going to usually be 9 ball bearings and 1 anti-reverse clutch bearing versus 6 and 1 anti-reverse clutch. So there you go. We'll take those out of the way. We've said all we need to say about those. Now the size 30 and the size 40, again, there's a size 35 in the middle that you can't see because it is in fact invisible. So we'll go ahead and we'll do a spool diameter on the 20 or the 30. I don't have a 35. That's why I'm not doing anything with it. We're looking at I'm trying 1.7335 inches. So about 1.7 and a half. And then we'll go over to the size 40 and we're up to 2 point, almost 2.1. So 2.0890. So again, that helps you decide if the rod is correct for that. For both the 20 and the 25, I'm using those for ultralights with 4-pound test. That's what I'm using them for. Okay, so let's go over specs again on these. So on the size 30, your drag is going to be 10-pound max drag. The 35, not pictured, is 12-pound drag, and your size 40 is going to be 14 pounds of drag. That's the maximum amount of drag when you tighten it down and all that fun stuff, right? The weight, you're looking at 8.8 ounces. The 35 is going to be 10.4, and the 40 is going to be 11.5. These numbers come from Pflueger themselves. Both of these are going to be 10 bearings, 9 plus 1 anti-reverse clutch, yada, yada, yada. Again, 5.2 to 1 gear ratio. So this is where we're going to have a significant jump in line capacity. So just to refresh here, on the size 25 that we've already talked about, we could do 4-pound test, 110 yards. So when we step up to the 30, we're going to more than double that at 255 yards of 4-pound test. 145 yards of 6-pound test, and then when we go to 8-pound test, we're up to 130 yards. When we convert that into braid, we're looking at 6-pound test, 275 yards. 8-pound test, we get you 190 yards, and 10-pound test, we get you 160. Okay, so now we're going to pretend that we're looking at the 35. It looks very similar to, between the two of them. So it's going to be holding 6-pound test line, 230 yards, again, versus this one, which was 145 on the size 30. So again, pretty significant improvement, 85 yards there. So 8-pound test, 185 yards, and 10-pound test, 155, and that's all in mono. As we go to braid, 8-pound test, 250 yards, 10-pound test, 220 yards, and 14-pound test will get you 160 yards. Now we're jumping up to the size 40. And again, just for comparison, the size 35, not pictured, 8-pound test was 185 yards of mono. This one will do 285 yards of that same 8-pound mono. So 100 yards more of 8-pound mono on the 40 versus the 35. If you go up to 10-pound test, you're looking at 230 yards. 12-pound test, 195. So one thing that should be kind of obvious here is most people are not going to want 200 yards of mono on their spool. So this one, you can go up to 14 or 17-pound test if you so desire without really any problems. Again, you're limited by the 14-pound max drag, but when you take into consideration fun things like knot strength and such, even at 17-pound test, you could probably break off with this reel. Braid capacity, 320 yards of 10-pound. If you go up to 14-pound test, which is a very strange size for braid, but okay, 280 yards. And 20-pound test will get you 200 yards of braid. Okay? So again, you could easily go up to 25, 30-pound braid on this. So what are the uses of these reels, right? So let's go back. We talked about the 20 and the 25. The 20 would be a great ice fishing reel, in my opinion. I don't ice fish because I'm a fat boy and the ice doesn't get thick enough for me to step out on it. The size 25, this is going to be the size that I'm going to go to. This is going to be similar to a size 1000 in Shimano's and Daiwas. So the size 20 is more like a 500 in those other brands. Okay. So that's going to be my ultralight. That's going to be crappie and bluegill and stuff like that. When you get into the size 30, so 130 yards of 8-pound test mono. This would be good for small bass, finessing and that kind of stuff. Might be okay for smaller skipjacks if you're doing bait fishing. If you like heavier line when you are fishing for crappie and bluegill up, 8, even 10-pound test, then I would go with the size 30. Again, I'm more of a 4-pound test guy, but that's just me because I like the line to not have as much memory. So your size 35. So again, that one's going to get you about 155 yards at 10-pound test mono. Now we're really into the bass finesse, even not finesse, doing worming and stuff like that. There would also be a decent skipjack rod if you're using that for bait. If you're going to be using sabiki rigs and multiple fish at a time, then I would definitely step up to the 40 for skipjack. This could work good as a catfishing reel for channel cats, smaller blues, smaller flatheads. This is not necessarily something you want to be chasing trophy 100-pound fish with. Again, you're limited by the 14-pound drag on this, and also the line capacity. Again, you can take this up to 15 or 17-pound easily and still have 150 yards probably. So that's where I'll be looking at these. So these are all last year's model, although I've been told that this year's model is just a change in the color scheme. All the specs seem to be exactly the same. These reels are typically $69.99. If you look at last year's model, like these, you can often find them for $35 to $39 on clearance. So that's where we are on these President reels. They have been a mainstay for many years in the crappie community. They like them. For the price point, they're a very good option in that price point of reel. They're going to be a step up from something like the Shimano Sienna, which is $30 or $40 reel, and near the Daiwa LT series like the Regal, etc. So that's where we are. I hope you gained some good information out of this. Do subscribe to my channel. I will post deals as I find them. I don't post a lot of deals because it's going to be a good deal before I'm going to post it. I'm not, telling you about something that's 3% off. But if I find a good clearance deal, it will be on my YouTube page. But mostly I'm a fishing channel. I do reviews on anything fishing or fishing adjacent. And I also live fish for both panfish as well as catfish, and go out to the Gulf a few times a year and get a little saltwater in. Thanks for watching, everybody. Like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff, and I will see you next time.